All right. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. It's 3 o'clock on the second day, but we're happy to be here, and we have an amazing panel and an interesting subject, which I think is very, very relevant to where we are today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel, and then I'm going to do a quick poll. So stay tuned for that. So we have 4 panelists. First, we have Mark Penn, who's to my left, who's the chairman and CEO of Stagwell, Inc., which is a NASDAQ-listed marketing services firm with over 13,000 employees around the world. He's been a key advisor to business and political leaders, including a number of US presidents, for the past 20 years, and he's the author of 2 best-selling books. Earlier in his career, Mark was the executive vice president and chief strategy officer of Microsoft. So brings a wealth of knowledge to the panel. Then we have Christie Travers-Smith, who's the director of EMEA, strategic partnerships of Google for travel and retail, where she manages the key business and industry relationships across the Google suite of products. She partners closely with leading brands driving digital and AI-powered transformation. Then we have Caspar Lee, who is co-founder of Influencer, which is a leading creator marketing platform that connects leading global brands with creators and their audiences to drive meaningful outcomes. Caspar's also co-founded Creator Ventures, a VC fund, and MVE, which is a talent management company. And interesting, Caspar's also been a creator himself, and he's amassed over 18 million followers, so he can speak to that subject from a personal perspective. And on the far left is Ross Borden, who's the founder and CEO of Matador, which is a global digital media brand focused on travel and adventure. Across digital and social, Matador reaches over 180 million people every month, with a mix of video, articles, city guides, and social content. And in 2023, Matador launched Guide Geek, which is an OpenAI-powered travel assistant delivered through Instagram and WhatsApp. So thank you all. Can we all give them a quick hand for joining? We're going to post a poll. Hopefully we can put a poll up on the screen. If you could just use your phone and capture that. And the question is, who most influences your travel decisions today? Creators, friends, brands, or algorithms? We're going to talk about all of these with some data underlined, and we'll look at the results at the end of the session. So I'm really excited. I think the panel's going to have a great discussion. There are a couple things I'd like to do just to set the conversation up. And so I'm going to set the table. The creator economy is projected to exceed $500 billion by the year 2027. So $500 billion in the creator economy. And 84% of millennials and Gen Z say that social media influences travel decisions. 84%, and I'd normally say of upcoming generations that influence the industry we're in, but the reality of it is these are people that are spending today, that are spending a disproportionate share of their income on travel, and are the future of the business, certainly. There are amazing influencer creators like Bruno Biancardi, who's got 14 million Instagram followers, who's a luxury and travel specialist. Chris Burkhardt, who's got 4 million Instagram followers, focusing on the adventure space. Mark Wiens, who's got 2 million, focused on culinary and travel. And then Kirsten Rich, who goes by the alias Blonde Broad, who's focusing on the solo and female travel, which I think is a fascinating subsegment. There are a number of things that are reshaping where we are today, one of which is, and we've heard before from others, around hyper-personalization. So the ability for algorithms to analyze data to make very, very intuitive and unique recommendations to travelers that really make discovery more intuitive and inspiring. Viral influencers, which is a relatively new phenomenon. AI-powered virtual influencers are emerging as new trusted voices. Predictive AI, which is really being leveraged. It's machine learning being leveraged by brands and destinations to help brands optimize their marketing strategies. And then trust and authenticity erosion, which is something I think we'll spend some time on. So I'm going to start with an open question to everybody, and I'll ask Mark to lead us through first. And that is, how is the cultural power of influencers evolving in 2025? Are they still setting the tone? Have they lost their authenticity?
Well, look, I think you have to look now at travel marketing as something like a 9-layer cake. And at the very top layer is kind of an Uber message, right? A message that kind of gives a look, a feel, an emotion that really relates to a destination. And probably in the mid of this funnel are really the creators now, who take various segments of the potential market and speak to them, about so many interesting elements, so that if you're a foodie traveler, a romantic traveler, a beach traveler, you can now find these incredible degrees of interesting content that really speaks to you and your interest. And that, of course, creates a greater depth of connection than ever existed before people make that ultimate decision. So we at Stagwell kind of work with like United and IHG and others and do the Uber message, or even countries like Sweden, and sometimes in even a humorous way. And then we also work with the creators, and then you kind of work at the kind of hard-nosed, like final, get it over the line, 20% off that flight that gets you here in 3 hours, right? And so that final kind of performance-oriented push. And so in my cake, if you look at the Uber message, you look at the greater interest that's created. Now, let me just say, the real competition to creators today is ChatGPT and the other LLMs. I think that the newest phenomenon clearly is, and I saw this myself, give me a 2-day tour of Saudi Arabia, given my interest in history, religion, and culture, and it will spit it out in about 30 seconds.
Yep.
And that, I think we don't yet have the numbers on that,
yep.
But I think the numbers are going to be phenomenal. And so that's where I think AI now is playing a real role as a travel consultant that never existed before, or that was really taken up by your calling the agent or establishing somebody locally here. So all of those things together, I think, represent a whole new universe of way people make their travel decisions that is radically different from what it was just a few years ago.
I think it's right. Christie, how do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, I would just build on that and add maybe the responsibility of the tech platforms to ensure that that trust can be maintained, to look at how you can identify genuine content and differentiate that from synthetic content as well. So if you look at a Google DeepMind tool, for example, and there are others called SynthID, that embeds in the content an invisible watermark that maintains regardless of compression or altering. And I think, those sorts of tools are there to protect that authenticity of creators as well, and to make sure that users who are viewing the content can trust that it's real. I think the other policy element which sort of backs that up is the requirement for how content is created by creators to be declared. So if they are using tools, etc., to make that content, obviously that's encouraged. It's, there are a lot of creative opportunities with that, but declaring what is real and what has been generated is a requirement too, so that trust can be maintained. And YouTube, for example, removed 11.4 million videos, I think, for non-declared artificial content creation just between April and June this year. So it's something that needs to be followed through so that user trust can be maintained and that creator authenticity can have the impact.
On your question, how is influence has changed, what's evolving? A lot has changed, but at the same time, there's categories that haven't changed. We still have these massive celebrity influencers who can garner huge attention, like you've seen the announcement at Riyadh Seasons with Mr. Beast doing that. That's an example of a celebrity influencer campaign that I believe will do extremely well. But in terms of like the long tail of creators, there's a bigger opportunity for them now than ever before, because the algorithms are the ones who are deciding what people see rather than the people deciding what they see. So back in my day, in 2010, when I was a YouTuber, it was all about building an audience through subscriptions. Now it's all about every time you make a video, you have to re-engage an audience based on what they care about. So I think that's a hugely different opportunity for tourism boards and so on, because I think you can actually make the destination the hero of the content through these creators, and when people are looking for that content, that can be what they're consuming versus just consuming some information about a creator. And then just to touch on the AI stuff, I completely agree. It's a great place for people to learn about how to plan their trips and so on. What I will add, though, is the data in which the AI is getting the information from comes from all over the place, including content on social media. So we're seeing a lot of brands trying to create content for AI, SEO, or GEO through creators, which is an exciting opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone shared there. I like Mark's idea of the layer cake in terms of our communication to potential travelers. I also think it's a content cake where you can have the sort of like quick hits and viral wow videos to draw attention to your destination, and then deeper level of trip planning, and then longer form stuff where you're actually getting across the line to a booking. I also think that creators are becoming Hollywood faster than Hollywood is figuring out how to become creators. So we're seeing now a lot of people who started on TikTok or YouTube, like Caspar, now getting their own streaming shows. We just signed our 4th streaming show, and now we're doing brand-funded streaming shows, longer form episodes. And so I think that's one trend that we always think of creators as like this in the feed, really short videos, but I think they are reaching the sort of Mr. Beast-esque power to do longer form content and take those audiences to deeper engagement on longer form video. And then the AI stuff, yeah, we launched Guide Geek, total experiment, no idea what we were doing. We got kind of early access to ChatGPT's model and hacked together a travel agent focused on booking travel and finding information about travel. We delivered it through Meta and Instagram, and instantly started growing like crazy because it was frictionless. People didn't have to leave WhatsApp, didn't have to leave Instagram. They could just click over and chat with Guide Geek and get travel information and inspiration, in 3 seconds, like Mark said. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of room for both creators to evolve into an even bigger piece of this space, as well as obviously AI.
Can I ask you to follow up on that, Ross? Because I think you sit this interesting place around storytelling. And is the belief, or is the way you think about things, that AI will complement that? Or do you think it'll challenge in terms of authenticity? I mean...
Yeah, if you've played with VO3 or some of the amazing models, props to Google, incredible video models, I think that they are going, and this is just the beginning, right? If we're looking at AI as the internet, we're like dial-up modems and AOL right now. Like, this is the very early innings. So these models are going to get incredibly good, and I think they're going to allow all of us, publishers, creators, DMOs, marketers, to do more with the video we have. And I think for the quick stuff, or like if you have a family walking in Hegra and then switch that to a couple, like things like that are quick, and it makes your content go further. I happen to think, though, that we're not going to replace human-driven storytelling and really emotional storytelling with AI video, because I think, honestly, travel will be like the last outpost of like real stories about real people in real places, whereas the rest of advertising for products and stuff like that will all get eroded by AI. Yeah. But I have to think that real storytelling in the travel space will be kind of like the final outpost.
Yeah. Just to add something, I think the reason people consume social media is to do one of 3 things. It's to learn, connect, and feel. And I think some of those things can happen through AI. You can feel laughter by watching a crazy AI video of a piece of IP you care about, but usually that IP is coming from real people. When you want to connect, it's a lot harder to connect with AI, especially about an AI's opinion on their favorite destination that they haven't actually gone to. And learn. Learn is something, again, you're seeing great innovation with AI and learning. But a lot of that also has to come from real experiences. So, and also a lot of it is coming from real IP. And clients come to us all the time and they ask about how is AI going to affect influencer marketing. And actually, because most influencers are not just charging to make the content, they're charging to have access to their audience, and they're charging to have access to their image and opinion and IP. And actually, it doesn't make that much financial sense to just replace that creator with an AI version of themselves. It's not the expensive part filming the content for these brand deals. It's the expensive part having access to the creator. And so that kind of stuff doesn't get disrupted as much, but there's a whole lot that will.
And if I may just add a little bit to that, which is, we've heard a lot over the conference the last couple of days about AI democratizing content. And I think, the cost and time barriers that are broken down by products like VO3 and Flow that allow any destination, for example, to create really high quality, high spec videos. And we've been hearing from lots of, the ministers around over tourism and particular locations. Well, breaking down that barrier and giving the opportunity for more destinations, smaller destinations without those budgets to create those high-spec videos, combining the virality that will take with the personalization that enables you to match those interests, match that deep intent data that you'll understand, have access to. Being able to sort of open new horizons and expand that, I think, is a real opportunity for AI to drive forward the travel industry, and combine that with the trust mechanisms we discussed before. You protect the authenticity as well. And it could be, great matchmaking for AI.
Well, I mean, just to round it out, look, AI could make the moon look attractive. I think that it can make virtually any image that you could possibly dream up. And I think that's the world that we're entering. Right? It's a whole new world of image creation that creators can take advantage of. But look, I think that you can't lose track of the fact that only people can really tell the story. That, look, this could be celebrity-driven, and, well, oh, if they're going, it must be cool. So I think I have to go to that island. Or it can be kind of image-driven. Wow, that looks like an attractive place that I might go. Or it could be information-driven. But I think all three of those underlying the technology and our ability to target are human creators taking the destinations, making them seem attractive, finding what's really interesting about them. And there's no substitute for that. No one who's never been here could really make the kind of video to attract people to here to somebody who's really experienced it and really can relate those experiences. And that's ultimately what makes creators and creation so powerful in terms of stimulating travel, that they can take their human experience of having actually come here and turn it into something that convinces others to do the same.
Yeah. I have a question, and Caspar, I'll come to you first. Where are brands making mistakes as they approach this? And have you seen situations, and you don't have to call out brands themselves, probably would be fair to do, but what are the common mistakes brands are making?
Well, there was a big mistake, which was brands used to try and do too much, and everyone's trying to prove their worth in the chain, and ultimately the creator gets it, and they're like, oh my God, I know there's 2 creators in the room there, and they're just like, please leave me alone, I don't need so much information, let me just do this, I know what my audience likes. But then so many people like me said that on stage, that some brands gave over too much control to the creator, and the creator made something that was awesome, and got millions of views, but people didn't even know what the brand was because it was fully handed over. And I actually did that once, and we did a study afterwards, and I was like, I've got the best performing video in the campaign, this is amazing, my audience loves it, but no one actually knew it was about Google, by the way, so sorry to admit that. It was Google Pixel. And we did another study with a piece of content, and it didn't do as well, but it actually hit all the marks. And so it's that balance, I think, that's really hard to get in a world of extremes.
I think it's a good point. We work with tons of creators and tons of agencies and brands. I think brands don't want things to go out on the internet without them looking at it. I think that's the part of the trust factor with working with creators. But I also think sometimes either creators get no brief, which is obviously bad, or they get an overbearing team that really wants to sort of like kind of read the cue cards, you know, and not trusting the creator to know his or her audience. So I would, you know, advocate for brands to have an open mind, let the creators do their thing, let them bring new and interesting ideas to the content, but then make sure they understand, hey, make sure we do want to see this before it goes live.
100%.
So that's kind of like the best of both worlds, my experience.
And just to add, I think, you know, own your niche is what I would say. Like, there is a temptation that I see from a lot of brands to go try and be broad for everyone. But I would say focus on being indispensable to someone. And I think that is really where we've seen the most impact that brands have been able to make. It's about having that content that delivers actual value. So, you know, those travel plans, those how to pack a suitcase for Saudi Arabia, you know, those sorts of contents which are very bespoke, very specific, and very useful, I think is where we see good success.
Sure. I mean, look, I think there are a lot of pitfalls in the creator economy. We know that a single creator video could either bring millions of people to your destination or sink it for the next couple of years. So you've got to really have some control over the content, or it could get away from you. And so I really think that you never have to forget what your overarching story is. If you're going to actually sponsor creators, you really have to have reviewed and approved what the creation really is, because a social media backfire can really be quite devastating, and then you'll have to bring in a whole bunch of firms to really do a lot of work to clean it up.
You shift into crisis management. I'm gonna touch on an area that I think, Christie, you referenced earlier when we opened, which is around authenticity, right? And how do we make sure that creators maintain that authenticity and own that kind of that trust of their users, especially in a world where AI does seem like it's creeping in any different way, whether it's in creative or how they're researching or whatever it might be. Like, that authenticity and trust is ultimately what they build their entire livelihood on.
Yeah.
Do we see is there movement towards that, or do we think we haven't reached that point yet where trust has been eroded?
Yeah, I mean, trust is absolutely foundational, as I said before. And then you think about the creator economy now. I mean, specifically for travel, you have a number of creators that are doing something we call pre-trip loyalty, which is where, you know, they're getting all of the, you know, sort of authentic experience of meeting that person, tasting that food, doing that journey that you might be considering doing, and allowing users to feel that comfort, to do a little bit of the vetting, to do the planning ahead of time, you know, and that gives an opening, actually, if I may just segue a little bit over to the opportunity for destinations to piggyback off of that fantastic authentic content and to do things like using AI for utility. So you can use AI off the back of that for fantastic bespoke itineraries to enable that personalization so that you can help brands and destinations convert those interested travelers who've really leveraged that authentic content and able to make it into visitors.
Anybody else have a view on that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have been in this industry for a long time, and I would say authenticity is like the number one buzzword of the last maybe 2 decades, decade and a half. So I continue to think that, you know, for the longer form human storytelling, those are going to be real stories. I will say, though, that I think where AI could come into the content realm, other than just making it better or cooler transitions, is you know, you could send a reel to an AI and say, build me an itinerary around this reel. This looks awesome to me. It's a real video about a real place, real people, but base my itinerary around this. And I think, you know, we've talked mostly about AI as generation for video or images. I think there's a whole other world of AI for trip planning that's just going to be completely incredible for travel. More people are going to travel because it'll be easier to plan and book a trip. And so I think there's like 3 big drivers: voice, agentic commerce, and then memory. So the AI is getting to know you. How many people, by the way, talk to AI, their AI assistant, whether it's ChatGPT? Okay, so maybe 40%. I would say a year from now, I would expect 100%. And as you talk to it more, it's going to get to know you, and then you can kind of just say, hey, where should we take the kids for Christmas, New Year's, holidays? And it'll know you're really into skiing, or you love these little beach towns, or it'll present options to places that you've asked about, but you've never actually been. So I think memory will be the ultimate unlock for trip planning with AI.
Well, let me just say, on authenticity, I used to work for a lot of political candidates. And so authenticity was always a big issue with the political candidates, was are they being authentic? And since I was behind the stage, I knew really when they were being authentic or not. And so sometimes they would go out there and they would really tell, I knew it was exactly in their heart, and people would say, that's completely unauthentic, could you believe that? And sometimes they were just faking the crap out of it. And everybody said, oh my God, that was so authentic. Because so authenticity, never forget, is in the eye of the beholder. And when people say authenticity, they really mean I see something that reflects my opinion. So I actually think it's a very false concept. And let me just give you one other story, which is very important about creators and to some extent authenticity. One time we were marketing a movie, and the creators in the movie did an amazing job getting people to that movie. Like, they could feel the movie and the drama of it. And the movie itself was terrible. And so they got so angry that the marketing campaign was so good and the movie was so terrible that they threw shoes at the screen. And so the destination, let's not forget, whatever the creators create, the destination has to deliver. And if the destination doesn't deliver, they will be just as mad at those creators. And that's really the bottom line.
Do we think that reinforces the connection between a creator and their audience? Because ultimately, an audience has some confidence or trust in creators they follow. And that's the reason they've been able to build these audiences. And if they mislead that audience because of exactly what you're saying, that trust is eroded immediately. It goes away immediately.
Yeah. I think it's obviously, when you're a creator and you're selecting what brands to work with, you've got to be very careful that you're promoting something that is actually not going to piss off everyone who ends up buying it. But also, I think you can't solely be responsible whether or not that brand does well or not, because a creator should be part of a wider marketing campaign. And sometimes people think, hey, influence marketing works, it's great, let's do it. Let's only do influencer marketing, and let's only work with maybe 3 creators, and we're going to try to sell out this product. And there's so much more stuff around the ecosystem of a campaign that you need to do when you're talking about the cake, especially when it comes to travel. You don't open Instagram one day, see a creator in a country, and then that very second go and book it. You have to go speak to people, you have to think about it, you have to maybe check AI, what does that think? So you're part of something wider. And then the other really important thing with influencer marketing, which sometimes people forget, is distribution. And what creators you're working with based on the distribution you have, because you're working with an audience that is not exactly in one place and one type of person, and so there's a lot of brands that end up spending a lot of wasted money on a creator that has an audience in one country where they're distributed, but then the majority of the audience is somewhere else. And I just think all of those things together need to be considered when working with influencers.
I love the idea of thinking about all of the different tools that travelers will access, not just the creator content. I think about specifically some of the work that we've done, for example, with Street View capture. So we've recently completed a 15-kilometer Street View capture of Jeddah, the UNESCO World Heritage Site, for example. And for the first time, users can see every single aspect of those sort of coral streets and houses that globally is accessible, that was never accessible before. And you combine that content with, this authentic influencer content that we've been discussing, and the great engagement that, that destination might get from it. And you've got a really full picture of what that experience will feel like. So I think that expansive tool selection is really critical.
That's right. Quick question, Ross. You were when we were touching base last night. You talked about a campaign you'd worked on where you ended up creating 400 pieces of content through a series of creators or influencers you worked with. Can you explain how that works from a scale perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of this idea of social search. And a lot of the Fortune 500 CMOs that we talk to, they're obsessed with this right now. Because, and I think you opened with 84% of millennial and Gen Z get travel inspiration from TikTok and Instagram. And I'm surprised, honestly, it's not even higher than that. But a lot of these folks, obviously, a lot of people are searching for travel queries on AI. But a lot of younger people they want to see video results. They don't want to see text-based results at all. So they'll just use the search bar on TikTok or Reels, Instagram, to find travel advice. That could be the best brunch, that could be the best adventure, the best hiking trail, whatever it is. They want to see those results in video. So, and again, like touching on the briefs and the agency review, you know, sometimes you work so hard, there's so much back and forth, and the whole campaign has maybe 4 or 5 pieces of content. So hopefully it does really well, but I think a lot of the brands now, and I would say many travel brands, DMOs, Visit Las Vegas, we've done this with, and cruise lines and others, they've wanted like 400 videos instead of 4 videos over the course of a year. So that if you're searching on TikTok and Instagram, you're really well covered. Like all the videos are up there and they're just putting out absolute fire hose of high quality content. And last night, you guys were like, how do you go about doing 400 videos? And we actually work with small creators who are not influencers. They're not expensive to work with, but they're really talented creators nonetheless. And then we have approved itineraries, and then we have, you know, send 10 of them out over the course of a few months, and each of them do 40 videos. And what you get back is just a wealth of brand new content that the internet has never seen. And so, and I know coming from TikTok and our partners at Meta tell us the same thing, if it's a brand new piece of content, not a repost, it's more valuable to that platform. So when it's being uploaded, the algorithm is also checking, does this content exist already? So we're kind of like, some of that goes on our channels and gets a lot of views, and the rest of it is just gives, you know, a Dropbox folder for a DMO every, you know, at the first of every month. They open this 30 brand new videos that are on brand and really cover the destination in a very wide capacity. So yeah, I think it's a smart way. I think there's times to work with mega creators and there's times to work with smaller creators and go after kind of more volume.
I think touching on that, it's kind of working with influencers and doing influencer marketing, you've kind of got to see it a bit like venture, where, you know, some of your bets are going to pay back 10x, some of your bets are going to just give you 2, 3x, and some of them are going to completely fail, and you have to do it across a number of creators. That can include a hero creator as part of the campaign, but generally speaking, the influencer marketing ecosystem really thrives when a brand comes with a long plan and does an annual project, and across that project can work on hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content, because unfortunately TikTok, Blake, you can't always perfectly predict which piece of content is going to work. Obviously AI is helping with that and helping with multi-edits, and you can do tri-reels and so on, but really I think it's about kind of spreading your bet.
And I think, you know, just the 400 video strategy actually is a good way of future-proofing your business, because if we look at how usage of LMs increases, and you look at the long-form searches, the very specific searches that that users are doing now, you can ensure that multimodal inputs that are being used to train those LMs are recognizing that specificity and serving that deep content to the right user, super relevant at the right time. And I think it's a great approach.
Well, and look, I think it all comes back to the layer cake. First of all, you've got to have an Uber story. You've got to know who you are, what your history is. What are you emphasizing? When I did on I Love New York, we emphasized Broadway. Are you emphasizing, what are you a sports destination? Are you a romance? You have to have a story. You have to have a history. You have to have a set of values. You have to explain that. Then in this mid-funnel, I think you're going to have a lot of specialized creator content of all kinds and sorts of ways. And we do tell, you know, agencies at Stagwell tell the Uber story. Other agencies then tell the social media story. And then on the third level, you have to have that closing offer. What gets them across the finish line? And we have another set of agencies that do that. And I think if you have that 1, 2, 3, ultimately, that is the formula for success. And of course, today, you're going to have amazing AI agents who, when people talk to them, explain the destination and also help really serve as ambassadors for your region in ways that you thought were only going to be people, but today will be a combination of people and AI agents.
Do you have any good examples from the Stagwell?
I just love our Sweden campaign because I think we talk about all of this serious stuff, and it was a campaign where Sweden launched a war against Switzerland and said that Sweden is not to be confused with Switzerland. And they had 10 reasons why they were different. They were not the place that makes chocolate, right? They were the place. So it was, I think, an incredibly funny campaign, memorable in its nature, and had that kind of humorous trick to bring people into the story and differentiated in a crowded market, a country like Sweden. So I love that as a kind of unique way to tell an Uber story that then gets filled in with the other 2 channels.
That's a great example. Do we have the results from the poll? I'm just out of curiosity if we can put those up, maybe for everybody to see. Who influences 29, 47% friends? I think that's pretty consistent, yeah. It'll be interesting to see if we're sitting here next year, if that has changed at all. I guess that just to summarize, because we have about a minute left, I think that the thing that struck me is that the humanization, the creators, and the storytelling is not going away. AI is not going to replace that, but complement it in many ways, and probably some that we haven't thought of yet. That when it comes down to discovery, obviously, there are amazing places to discover, including search. Increasingly, it's some other places like ChatGPT and others, and Gemini and others. And that these agentic capabilities will continue, right? And they'll serve a purpose in the overall experience of travel, which doesn't necessarily replace influencers and creators, but actually enhances it. So with that, I'm going to thank the panel and thank the audience, and we'll close. Thank you.
Easy peasy.